what is the effect of having money? What is the responsibility of money? All right.
Right.
What is also the responsibility of saving, planning, patience with money?
Mm-hmm.
When you're young, you think you got time. Then when you get old, you always look back and you say, man, I could have done a better job with this or a better job with that. And the
What's the
old,
thing you always heard when you grew up about money?
the love of money is a sin. And it's,
Root of all evil.
so it's not. Money in itself is not a sin, but we tend to desire it to show it off. It's a mental thing. And
There you go.
we were not trained to deal with it. And hopefully we pass down a lot of our frustrations and a lot of our failures to our children. My brother one time, he used to give every time he made money, he would give it to my mother to hold it. All right. And so she says, okay, I'll hold your money for you. So he came to her one day and he says, hey, Mama, I need my money. I need X amount of dollars for my money. And she said, well, look at that shirt on your back. Where do you think that came from? Look at them drawers on your behind. Where do you think that came from? All right. And he said, but wait a minute. Titus and the other brother, they spent their money and they still got a shirt on their back.
Life lessons of legacy, where real men have real conversation. I'm Anthony Washington.
And I'm Titus Garnett, and we're here to dive deep into the struggles, victories, and lessons that shape us as men. From mental health and fatherhood to faith, identity, and purpose, breaking the silence and starting the conversations that matter.
We have over 12 years of professional experience and over 140 years of combined life experience as fathers, sons, brothers, husbands, friends, educators. We are you. We know that healing starts with honest dialogue. So let's get real. Let's get ready. Let's grow together. This is Mended Men's Conversation. Let's dive in.
This is Mended Men with a new episode coming at you. My name is Titus Garnett.
I'm Anthony Washington.
And we're here to have men on men conversations. And today we're going to be talking about financial freedom and responsibility. Money can either empower you or enslave you. Let's talk about how men can take control of their finances and build lasting wealth. The first subtopic is called Understanding Financial Mindset. Difference between poverty, middle class, and wealth mindset. Anthony, you got any thoughts on that?
Man, I got a lot of them. Yeah. When you talk about the mindset, I think that that's very important because sometimes I think that when I start out, if I don't have a positive mindset, I'm doomed from the start. So my thinking has to be on point about what I want to do, what I think about myself. That's the start. That's number one. Number two is that my actions have to follow how I think, and when I put my words follow my actions, everything else falls in line. So I can't go walking there with hoping and wishing that or praying somebody gonna give this to me because I got this or I know this person. I gotta be confident in myself that I know what I'm talking about and I can go in there and do what I said I'm gonna do. Just let the chips fall where they may. But the mindset for me, that's where everything starts at.
Well, one of the things we need to look at also is have we been raised or trained with a financial mindset?
Nope.
A lot of times, and I
I'm
can
gonna say for myself, no.
yeah, and that's what I was leading to. In my own experience, the answer is no too. My parents, they were one who did stuff, but they didn't tell you what they were doing or how they were doing it or what the future planning would be or how to set up for it. Okay? It was just when we got to a certain point, they gave you so much. Like when you start having a regular job, the first thing they started to do was taking money from your check. Okay, you need to pay us for this, that, in other words, if you got a $200 check, you had to give them either 25%, 30%, or even half of it. But what you were doing, but what it did to you mentally was say, damn, why are they taking all my money? I need to keep my money to myself. And then you say, I'm getting out of here. I'm getting my own place. but you have no mindset of what financially what it takes to live on your own. So
Yeah.
you're kind of lost. Go ahead. Sound like you got something on your
Yeah.
mind there, bro.
Yeah, because you made me think about, that when I can't remember the age, but I know when I first started working, I was into liking nice things. You remember now I'm going back. The pants were, they had like stripes in them and no belt buckle, was already, and you just button the pants on the side.
Uh huh.
I can't, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. You going way back there, brother. No, I don't know what you're talking about. Don't put me in this, all right? I always had a zipper and a belt, okay?
Y'all don't believe that. Well, anyway, man, my mom always took us to buy clothes. My old man kind of like
Right,
just gave her the money and do it. And and not a knock against her. She made sure we had what we needed. And I respected
right,
that.
right,
But I wanted something else. I wanted to be able to pick out what I wanted, and I know the only way I could do it is I had to pay for it myself. So I asked her
right,
one day. I said, "Do you mind if I get a job? Selling papers?" She said, "As long as you get up and do it, you can do it."
right,
And that's getting back to what you said earlier about teaching you about that mindset, working, and how you want to go about that, and why do you want to work, and when you start working, what are you going to do with the money? Just teaching you mentally about preparing you for life lessons. I mean, she gave me what she had, and listen, I appreciate every bit of it.
mm-hmm,
I don't want to sound like I'm ungrateful, but I appreciate it. She supported me when I did. She didn't stop me. She encouraged me. But what you were saying is that sitting somebody, your son or your daughter down and talking to them about working and what you want to do. You want to work, and why you want to work? What you want to do with this?
right,
Where's your
right,
what's your goal? What's your intention? Things
right,
like that. That I'm thinking. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about when you talk about
right.
teaching people about.
Yeah, about what is the effect of having money? What is the responsibility of money? All right.
Right.
What is also the responsibility of saving, planning, patience with money?
Mm-hmm.
When you're young, you think you got time. Then when you get old, you always look back and you say, man, I could have done a better job with this or a better job with that. And that's one of the things. Our parents came up through times through the Depression, through wars. Our parents were black and they lived in the South, and every little penny they got, they had to hold on to because they weren't getting paid much. How do you separate it out? How do you work with your mate about handling the money? All right. And plus, I'm from a large family, 9 kids, so money was always a strain because where did the majority of that money go? And a real tough word for people to deal with is called budgeting. And how do you budget your
Unheard of.
money? Right. And so we have to eliminate the curses of money. All right, because it's not a curse. And the
What's the
old
thing you always heard when you grew up about money?
I'm getting that right now in my head. The love of money is a sin. And it's
Root of all evil.
so it's not. Money in itself is not a sin, but we tend to desire it to show it off. It's a mental thing, and
There you go.
we were not trained to deal with it. And hopefully, we pass down a lot of our frustrations and a lot of our failures to our children on the handling of money because you are going to make mistakes with it. But it's like money is a relationship. And
Right.
and it can change your thought process to have spending it is easy, keeping it in your pocket. There used to be an old saying, that money's just jumping right out of my pocket. It's making my pocket hot. I got to get that money
Yeah.
out of my pocket. So the way
You
we,
know.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't mean to cut you off, but you said that made me think that when Don't let that money control you. Man, let me tell you, when I first started working, I thought I was the shit.
Right.
I thought I was the
Right.
shit.
Right.
I can buy this, I get me a brand new car and all this sort of stuff. But the responsibility of paying that note and
Right.
insurance and all that,
Right.
like, man, I'm trying to think of ways not to do no shit. I'm gonna save, I wanna hold on to all this money so I can spend it buy bullshit. That's what it was.
Yeah, but you
You
didn't. But it
know,
wasn't bullshit at the time you were buying it. See,
no, no, no.
money
That's that mindset. Well, I
is
thought
that
that
mindset.
this was, it was more or less of something outward thing. I got this money. I'm gonna buy some nice clothes, have some nice things. Think that's how I used to think. But
Yeah. Another saying we used to have is money can't buy love, but money can buy attention. It can buy
yeah,
impression,
yeah,
and when you're younger and you stretching out, you want that attention. You want to be seen, and money can
you
do that.
love that attention.
You love that attention, and then that creates a problem in your relationships with people. All right, like your
Yep.
mate, how you had it. One mate want to say, "I always dress sharp all my life." Yeah, but you're in a situation now that dressing sharp has to take a back seat. The food on the table for your family, paying that car note, paying the insurance, and then
Not looking good
not looking good. And but we're gonna go down the line because we could stay on this one topic the whole
all day.
show. All right. But let's look at the one thing in this first subtitle was the difference between poverty, middle class, and wealth mindset. A wealth mindset is a money controlling mindset. All right. People want wealth, but how do you get wealth? And a lot of
Yeah.
times we as a people had a difficult time accumulating wealth. We could
We
accumulate
had no knowledge.
no knowledge, and we accepted hustling, side jobs, this, that, or whatever. But we
Man
find
worked
that
at the penitentiary.
that's right. And we weren't accumulating wealth, we was just maintaining.
Yeah.
Well, let me head on to the next one there. Breaking generational financial cycles, overcoming bad spending habits and financial ignorance. Most of these subject matters we talk about when we go to different subject levels, heck, sometimes we hit it before we even get to it. But
We
when it
do.
right, but here when it says breaking generational financial cycles, we could change that word cycles into curses because usually poverty breeds poverty. And we have to find a way to break out of that. Overcoming bad spending habits and financial ignorance. There was a time back in the 80s where a lot of these financial books came out, 80s and 90s. How to grow rich, think rich, grow rich, how to make this, how to do that, which is teaching because it was realizing that a lot of people were not teaching their offspring, so their children or whatever, about money. We were not learning about the cycles of money in school. We weren't taught how to utilize that, how to overcome bad spending habits. Sometimes we ran into experience as being the only teacher we really had, or we could
Yeah.
see how our parents did things, and if they didn't teach us, we tried to kind of work it out in our own head.
If we didn't try to work it out in our own head, I'm gonna say I look to other people, and I'm just say the streets.
Right, right, right,
For me, I'm gonna say that was a great influence on me because I was looking for something and I wasn't getting what I needed at home. So I looked towards the streets to educate me on how to do things. I
right,
mean, it's not a brag, but just being honest, that's what I saw. And it took me a while to open up to realize that, like, this is not the door I want to open. But, I ventured here.
right. And bad habits, sometimes bad habits in a lot of other areas is similar to each other, but I'm not going to go into all those other areas. In money, you spend it and you say, boy, then you come to find out, oh, I don't have enough for this car payment. I don't have enough for the insurance payment. I don't have enough for this food. Or, daggone, my kid needs this for school, or this and that. But sometimes bad habits, all it does is increase greater bad habits.
More bad habits.
Right. We
Yep.
say, I don't have enough money for this. I just need more money. Instead of us looking at and say, how are we handling the money that we have?
Yeah. Isn't it? I used to believe that to solve my problems I had to make more money.
Mm-hmm.
I've realized over the years that that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about how much money that you have. Is what you're doing with what you have.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah. Of course. Of
Because you don't have
course.
to make a lot, but how you spend it, makes a difference.
But you still have to understand how to handle that. What you got.
Right. Yeah. And that's the bottom line. I can make little as you, but if I manage my money right, I can have more than you. And you can just take yours and spend it, buy all these new things and whatnot. And that's what it is. Things.
Yeah.
And it's not, I get back to what we talked about before, idolize things instead of myself.
Right.
Once I appreciate who I was, I started to realize that, I don't need all these things to feel good. Nice clothes. I mean, I like clothes. That will never change. But I don't have to go out and buy every time I get paid, go out and buy me something nice, so I can look good.
Right.
As long as that stuff is clean, I'm good.
Yeah.
I got some nice stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
it's not a priority like it used to be.
Right. But see, the older you get, you either maintain or you loosen that peer pressure. What you think,
Yeah.
what other people think, or how you look. Now, you do have to dress for the environments that you go into. You're not going to
Right.
wear overalls if you work in an office. You're not
No.
going to wear a suit if you're a farmer in the field or you're a laborer. You don't wear a suit on the job. But you have to look at it still costs to dress for the environment that you in. All right. And some people like to stay in the streets, so they got to dress for the streets. Fashion changes. Now, I know we're using clothing as a subject of the point I'm making right now, but that also goes with food.
Yeah.
You got to learn one thing about learning how to handle your money is learning how to shop. And one of the toughest things to shop for, people think is clothes, is cars, is not. One of the toughest things to shop for is food. And the reason it's difficult because it has a short lifespan. You buy something, it's gone. Your suit can sit in your closet. Most women that I've known have got clothes in their closet with the price tag still on it. Ain't never used it. Ain't never wore it.
Hey, hey, yo, slow this down. Don't talk about my people, man. Don't talk about
Oh
my
man,
people.
I ain't talking about that. I'm talking about everybody's people. What are you talking about? You act like I ain't never known a white woman. Is that what you're saying? I'm
I
just
ain't saying no
joking.
names, but I know
No,
some people
you dragging me into the
that you
pit
can.
now. Don't drag me in there now, man. Oh, yeah, you
I know some
covering
people you can.
yourself.
Yeah, I know know some people that you can go to their house and you can see some brand new stuff just
Yeah,
piled
it's
up,
piled
just
up.
piled up.
Yeah,
Things.
but the thing is, food has a life, has a shelf life.
Yeah,
So
short stuff,
a
short,
short shelf
short.
shelf
Right.
life. And the thing of it is, how do you buy it? Do you? I've noticed over things I've seen, watched on TV or whatever, overseas, I'm gonna say like France, for instance, they buy food for when they need it. In other words, they buy stuff for dinner at that time. All right, rather than we do, we buy groceries to last us a week, 2 weeks, whatever. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to, okay, we got to budget how we buy, what we buy. And one of the things I found out too is people have a hard time. You got to know how to price shop. Now, they can price shop for clothes, but don't know how to price shop for food because it takes your attention to do that. But not to hang on that too much, let's move on down. The pressure of being a provider, balancing financial success without overburdening yourself. All right, the pressure of being a provider, balancing financial success without overburdening yourself. Oh man, now here's the thing. When you're a provider, one of the things that you carry with you from your youth is that are you a sharer? or are you selfish? And when you have to provide for other people, selfishness has to be minimal because
Yeah.
you have to share for other people. But go ahead.
I agree with you on that. You got to give up that selfishness because how can you build something if you don't plan for it? And that was one of I'm gonna say myself, that was one of my biggest downfalls. I didn't plan for something. If I see something, I'm gonna spend for it right then. Didn't plan for it. It would kill me in the end. So I learned over a period of time that take my time, have some patience. I ain't going nowhere. I pay a little bit. What I learned is that I learned to start paying myself.
Well, you're right. They always said when you get your check, put 10% away for yourself. Sometimes you
Mm-hmm.
can't. Sometimes you can't. All right. You've got a family. I look at my old man. He had a family of 9. And my mother used to work, but she got to a point she had to stop working. So it was just him bringing in the money, bringing in, providing for everyone. So he had to work side jobs. The kids had to work side jobs. All right. And all our money had to go to the family structure. And that happens a lot where the kids had to also provide. And that taught you either, okay, I got to provide for my kids for the future, or when I get old enough, I'm going to be selfish and get out the house and just worry about me. All right. But we grew up as providers also because even our side job helped pay bills, buy food, and we gave money to our parents, but we didn't know what it was for. My brother one time, he used to give every time he made money, he would give it to my mother to hold it. All right. And so she says, okay, I'll hold your money for you. So he came to her one day and he says, hey, Mama, I need my money. I need X amount of dollars for my money. And she said, well, look at that shirt on your back. Where do you think that came from? Look at them drawers on your behind. Where do you think that came from? All right. And he said, but wait a minute. Titus and the other brother, they spent their money and they still got a shirt on their back and drawers on their behind. And boy, that's
Right.
there's a lot here.
And
There's a lot here.
yeah, and that's what we that's what we lack when we talk about that building that foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Being taught how to save money. And make a sacrifice. It's nothing wrong with making a sacrifice because you learn. If I once I learned to once I started learning how to making a sacrifice, I realized it wasn't that bad. And
Mm-hmm.
some of the things, I wrote this down. One of the problems I had to solve is needs versus wants.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do I need this or do I want this?
Mm-hmm.
And I come to the conclusion that, I don't need that,
Yeah.
but I want this. No, I need this. I need this and I just want this,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that I wanted really didn't have too much value. The things that I needed, had a lot of value. I needed them on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
once I realized that, versus needs versus wants, I started making a lot of changes in my life. I realized
Yeah.
that, I don't need all that bullshit.
Yeah.
What I need to have a place over my head, a comfortable place where I can lay my head and get some decent sleep and wash my black behind.
Yeah.
I need some food, decent food, some good decent food that I can eat so I can get up and go to work and earn a paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I broke it down just as simple as that. Do I need this brand new car? Nope. I need a dependable car to get me from point A to point B.
Right. Right.
It break down, I spend some money to get it fixed.
Mm-hmm.
After a while, what I learned that some things is going to happen, and you're just going to have to take care of it. Instead of taking my whole paycheck and taking care of this, I set up little funds. This
Mm-hmm.
is for car, this is for food, entertainment, little things like that. And at the end, I ain't really had much left over, but I was okay because I had
Yeah.
needs. My needs was
Right.
taken care of.
Right.
Car breakdown. Oh man, I was a little bum, but I know I can go pay for it and get it taken care of, and I ain't had to worry about taking out my main savings.
Well,
So
one of the worst things in the world to just to agree with what you're talking about is to come home and hit the light switch and the lights don't come on.
tell me about
Or you turn
it.
on the
You ain't got no
stove,
heat,
you got no heat, you got no water or whatever.
or you come home and a big old notice sign taped to your door, or nailed to your door.
Hmm. Right. There's nothing more embarrassing than that. And so to me, the one of the first thing about paying bills, just to touch on that for a second, is the need. And the need right behind that word is utilities.
Yep.
So that puppy gets taken care of from there. All right, we got to I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but go ahead. You had a good roll. And when Anthony gets to roll people, let him roll. He'll roll you right over. Let him roll. We used to
Boy.
say, roll, Anthony, roll. We just got out the way. That's all it is.
See, what you cause it. You start talking, you start making me thinking about things and whatnot.
Hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
see, that's
You know,
that's the purpose of what we have in this conversation. And a lot of conversation, when you have it with other people, we don't think about it, but the majority of it is about the past and
yeah.
about the present. But most of it is about the past because the present is the shortest of time. It's boom, it's fleeting. The present is always fleeting. So we have to kind of pull from where we came from or what we talked about. And that is the majority of conversations that you have. Now, I'm going to add into something, and this is going to be really, really deep on conversation. We may not get through this title real good, but I'm quite sure it will come back again. Biblical stewardship and wealth being, the importance of tithing, saving, and investing. And we're going to let Roll Anthony roll. Go with this one first to put him on the spot. I'm going to kick back and we're going to be listen, Titus, listen. Go on, my brother.
Biblical, I had always had issues with. Because I would think that, I always thought that, I gotta, I'm gonna do wrong. I'm gonna just do wrong because I like doing and saying things. And I realized it just caught up. It always catch up with me. And I look at things now from more of a spiritual point of view.
Yeah,
How do I want to be treated?
yeah,
That's important to me. And first of all, it's like, how do I treat myself?
yeah.
Do I love me? And today, I can honestly say, I love me. I love the shit out of me.
Mm-hmm.
I am my number one fan,
Mm-hmm.
and that helps me with that second subject you talked about, stewardship. I have a conversation a lot. I talk a lot with my oldest son, and we have conversations. And one of the things I learned is that the hardest thing to do is listen.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I want to share what I'm thinking about, and that's not the most important thing. It's just
Mm-hmm.
listening. See where a person truly is. And sometimes people don't really need it. They're not looking for you to give them answers. They just probably looking to vent, get that shit off their chest. And I learned with conversating with him, that's where we at. I'm just listening to what he has to say. And we share, his opinion, I share my opinion, and we just kind of like go back and forth with that thing. And it works. And our relationship starts to change.
Mm-hmm.
He asked me, "What you think about this?" But this is just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, you got to learn to trust your decision.
Mm-hmm.
And he was telling me about his daughter. She was on Instagram doing a little crazy thing, 10 years old. Little, I would say, just too much of freedom. And he said that he had this dream or thought that came to him that this guy was telling him that sometimes we get things and we have to realize we just not ready for it. And he said, I don't know what I should do. I says, yes you do. Just what you're supposed to do. I said, sometimes you gotta listen to that little voice in your head. and it told you that sometimes God give you things, and you got to realize, am I ready for it? And if I ain't ready for it, then I got to take a step back and learn how to prepare myself for that. I said, I don't really need to tell you anything. I said, because this is the voice in your head, and this is some of the things I need to listen to. I hear and I'm listening to. I'm telling you, this is what I heard out loud. You telling me this is what you heard out loud? Roll with it. So, but we develop a trust. I mean, he was little. Sometimes I could just like knock him out because he would just do shit crazy, boy. I'm talking about like, boy, you just don't know, boy. I don't know. You got breakable brains, but that's what he had to go through. And he would start telling me, he said, "Man, she hard headed." And I asked him, I said, "Who does she remind you of?" All you can do is just laugh. I said, so, on your part as being a father, one of the requirements of being a father is patience. You got to have patience. Because if you don't, and what you're doing is you laying that foundation. They might not hear you at the first time, but you have to learn to be consistent and constantly do that. Again, we go right back to that action word. Is my actions and conversation coincide with each other? Am I consistent? And if my conversation is, and my actions coincide, and I'm consistent in what I'm doing, that's what they hear. That's what they see. And that's what we need to change. That's how we develop that I can't get that word just slipped right off my tongue. That generation of wealth. How we change the narrative, and I think that's important that what we do, because what me and you have done, we experience a lot. And what we see is that, we love and respect our parents. But we also realize what they came up through, how they was taught, they gave us the best that they had. So it's no time for have resent for me, and I'm gonna say this for you too, but correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't have the time for having resentments against them. Because we realize they could have been like some of them deadbeat pops and moms, and just like did their things. They had their issues, but they gave us the best they got. So you take that and I take it and run with it. And I appreciate everything I got from my mom and pop. It might not have been what I wanted, but it was what I needed. There we go back against with that need versus want. They gave me what I needed. You know, the thing of it is, I chose not to pay attention to it when I first heard it.
Well, you know that seeing that you have kids and grandkids and parents and stuff like that, when you're younger, you don't listen to
You
your
don't think
parent.
like that.
And when you're a parent, you think your children don't listen to you. But one of the things is the fact you end up like them. You may not think, they may not think that you heard them, or you may not pay them no attention, but you did. Some of that sunk into you. Or when you did something, you brought back that memory. Gee, my mom told me about that. My dad said something about that, this and that.
Yep.
So not saying it is worse than, but then being it said, you think people don't hear you or don't set in. It does. In
It
some
does.
way, somehow. They may not be able to spit it back to you verbatim, word for word, but a lot of times, like I had to tell my daughter one time, she would say something. I said, "No, no, no, cut the crap, cut the crap." Now daggone well, your mama told you that you just like me, so act like me. All right, get up on your hind legs and start kicking some ass. All right, don't just sit back. That ain't you. All right. So, and she said, "Yeah, Daddy, I know. I'm just like I said, right. So go on out there and do, whatever it takes. Now, it ain't about failing; it's about doing." And then you learn from doing. You don't learn from not doing. So do it.
Yeah.
But
Because listen, ain't nothing wrong with failure.
no, no. Failure is not, it's a reality. It's not a possibility. It's not a choice. It's a reality. Doing is a choice. And failure is a part of doing.
Mm-hmm.
And some people say, I don't never fail. Well, that's bull crap. Then you ain't never learned.
There you go.
Right?
Because you can't take the good without the bad.
Hey,
This is a balancing act, and if you don't
yeah,
learn how to balance, you're gonna fall all your whole life long,
right.
and that's a long fall, boy, a long fall.
hmm The thing about this subject matter here about tithing, saving, and investing. I'm gonna leave tithing for last, but I'm gonna go to savings. Saving takes discipline. That is the biggest responsibility that you have, and it is the most difficult thing financially that you have to deal with. Even though you have to satisfy your needs, you have to satisfy your wants. And if anybody say I never satisfy my wants, that's not true. Because there's a time you may be driving or on a hot day, you say, boy, I sure want an ice cream. You're gonna go get that ice cream. All right. You're gonna go do something at times that you are going to partially satisfy your wants. And I say partially, not all of it. You do not satisfy all your wants because they change all the time. All right. But your needs are necessary. So you need to have what are your savings for? Your savings are for future needs. And future needs could be down the road, 10 years, 20 years, retirement, or it could be toward the end of the month where you got to pay them utility bills when they come in. All right. And how to save takes discipline. And a lot of us are not truly taught that because we are told, okay, you messed that up. You'll learn one day. No, don't teach it that way. Say, this is why you do what you do. And then when you screw up, you say, okay, now you made that mistake. Now, how do you correct it? How do you
Yeah.
handle that? All right. Investing. Investing, most people, now they say that 50% of the people are invested into the stock market, but the majority of those people do it through the job, through 401ks or whatever. That is their investment. That is their savings also. So investments is a part of your savings. All right. You may get to the point that, man, I should have done that. Well, hey, it's done and it's gone. Try to maintain or deal with what you got right now and what you're going with. Now, the real kick in the butt is tithing. Now, I am not a religious person. I'm spiritual in the way of I know God, love God, respect God. I don't fear God because we're not gonna get into that religious theme right now. All right, but I got justification for it. Tithing is something I have been to, and since we're having conversation, to churches where they say you got to tithe 10% of your gross check, or you say 10% of your take home check. All right. You can look at your gross check, the taxes that come out of there. Heck, that's tithing to the government. That's tithing to the social structure that we live in, the taxes, this, that, and whatever. If I've got 10% to give, I give. But if I got 5%, I give my 5%. All right. But one of the things I do is I give. I like to give to people. I may give 5, 10 stuff here. To me, that is still tithing giving to the Lord, and I don't count on it or anything like that. All right. But go ahead. You got any comments on that? I don't want to get too deep, but when we start having people calling in like crazy, yeah, I'll go around and round with you if you need me to. You know. Oh, it don't matter one bit to me. All right, I'll go with you because of experiences in life, decision making in life, conversation in life, and freedom and responsibilities in life, and
Yeah.
choices. And what we have is choice. Go ahead, bro.
Right. My take on time, is something, as I've been blessed. I'm gonna say my whole life. A lot of times I wasn't even aware that I was being blessed. But today I realized I am blessed. I get a chance each day to get up and breathe and do this thing all over again. I agree with you. They say 10% of your savings. I give what I can. And that's the way I look at it. I'm going to give what I can. And sometimes I might not have no cash. Might have some food to give away, clothing,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So, I look at it like that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's part of my time. I do believe in, I think when I do that, it's going to come back to me tenfold. I
Mm-hmm.
believe that.
Mm-hmm.
I have no problem with giving time. I do what I can. If I have some extra, I just give it out.
Mm-hmm.
I like to roll with it like that. Check the chat. But That's my thing on tithing. As far as I'm concerned, I think it's important. For me, it's important because I don't have to be so I gotta have it all. They gotta have it, and I gotta give back. Because I seen a lot of in my lifetime. I seen things was given to me, and not always just on a financial basis. Some advice, a little bit of love, some attention. So and I appreciate that. And I realize that I get that when I just give unconditional.
But
I don't have to have
Anthony, you don't keep account of your giving.
no.
You don't,
I
and
just
there's no way you can because the giving is something that comes from your internal spirit. You don't
your heart from
your
my heart.
heart. I mean, you can give advice and it may
Yeah,
help
that's what I'm saying.
somebody. That is giving. You can help somebody cut grass or do this or do that. That is giving, but you don't keep a record of it. And you
No,
can't say, okay, I need to give to somebody 10% today. Oops, wait a minute. I help a woman carry her groceries out to her car and up to her apartment. I can't do no more giving the rest of the day because that's 10% of my time. You don't look
nah.
at it that way.
I agree with you. No, I don't. I don't. And you said it earlier. You said I just do it because it makes me feel better when I do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we may have to come to an end on this one.
A little short on your time there. The last subject matter, and I'm gonna be brief because of what I want to say, is practical steps for financial growth, budgeting, debt reduction, smart investing. We did touch on some of that, but a lot of
Yeah.
times budgeting, debt reduction, and smart investing, sometimes we have to go outside of our comfort zone. We have to go to other people to teach us how to do that subject matter there.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where we're at on that. I'm quite sure we're going to run into this again, this subject matter again. But go ahead.
I'm positive we will.
I got you. I got you. I'm sure too. So listen, we're going to end on that note there. And once again, this is Mended Men. I'm Titus Garnett.
I'm Anthony Washington.
And you guys, you go out there, you love life, and I'm sure Anthony will come up with something fancy the next time you meet us to say.
That's right. I will. I'm gonna work on
He'll work
it.
on it. So we can end by saying, and be true to you. Something, a little smart line. Anthony's going to have something like that for us next week. But anyway, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time for Mended Men.
All right. Have a good one. Hey, before you go, I got one more thing for you. If today's conversation spoke to you, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're ready to take that next step in your personal healing and growth, connect with us. We're here to help. You can find us at www.garnettcounseling.com. Your story matters. Your healing matters. And we'll be honored to be part of your journey. Let's keep the conversation going.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Mended Men Conversations. If something we shared resonates with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with someone who needs it. Remember, healing is a journey and you don't have to walk it alone. Stay connected with us. Subscribe to the podcast and join the conversation online. Until next time, keep growing, keep healing, and keep building your legacy.